Hello everyone and welcome back to the Council of Elrond, your number one podcast for all things Middle-earth. And today we're coming at you with a very special episode looking at the anniversary to rule all anniversaries. This is the 25th anniversary of the Fellowship of the Ring movie. And we're going to talk all about how that was celebrated. But first of all, I'm joined as always by my co-host and my brother Dave. Dave, how are you doing?
Good, yeah. Excited to get into this. It's been an exciting week and an exciting month, I suppose, for Lord of the Rings fans. So, yeah, excited for this.
Yes, it has. It has been an exciting time. And so I'm sure, like Dave just mentioned, a lot of you will have noticed some extra Lord of the Rings content popping up in your feeds and in your Instagram stories and all that kind of stuff. At least I have. And that is all thanks to this very special anniversary. So this week we're talking all about this momentous event in the history of Tolkien fandom, the celebration of 25 years since the Fellowship of the Ring was released, and the reason why all these 3 extended edition films ended up back in cinemas around the world. Plus, Dave and I are going to chat a bit about our own experiences and how we felt being back there in the theaters watching these beloved films on the big screens, and we're going to be also talking about how it felt to be back listening to the score by Howard Shore being blasted out on the Dolby surround sound systems. Yeah, we've also got a little bit of backgrounds as to why this anniversary happened, and some cool box office numbers and little bits and pieces like that. And then at the end of this episode, we're going to have a little chat as well about our upcoming trip to New Zealand and all of the Lord of the Rings movie locations that we are planning to see. So stick around to hear that as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. But of course, as always, guys, if you're enjoying these episodes, please give us a like and subscribe and drop us a comment and let us know if you were lucky enough to catch any of these films in their recent re-release and which ones you saw. And please let us know which of these masterpieces is your all-time favorite. I'll give you a hint. There's no wrong answers here, but I'd be interested to know because, yeah, it can be a bit controversial at times. So
it's The Hobbit.
So Dave, before we get to the emotional stuff like us returning to the re-releases, I'm just going to pull up an article from Deadline.com which goes into the reason for these extended edition cinema re-releases, and it gives us some numbers around the box office figures and all that kind of stuff as well. But just before we get into that, what's your understanding of why this all came together?
Yeah, I think obviously they had to celebrate the 25th anniversary in some capacity. And we talked about it in our last week's episode, how we do hope that there will be some more releases throughout the year and that this is just celebrating the Fellowship of the Ring 25th anniversary. So we've got Two Towers and Return of the King over the next 2 years as well. But of course, I think it's not uncommon for theaters worldwide to re-release the trilogy, and maybe that's the theatrical versions, maybe it's the extended, but I think it was like how you mentioned there, kind of a momentous occasion when the whole world in one weekend was releasing all 3. And it was a big push, and it really pulled a lot of the fans together. And I've also heard a lot of people that had never seen the movies before going for the first time. Which is incredible because you know, you and I just think of it as like, you know, it's a legacy thing, and people go to just experience that in the theaters. A lot of people are seeing it in theaters for the first time, but some people were seeing the movies for the first time, which I think is mad.
Blows my mind.
But yeah, I guess that's the main thing is celebrating 25 years. And yeah, like I'm sure you're going to go into the box office figures, but it's done very well.
It has done well, yeah. We're going to get into that right now. So I'm just reading this little article, as I said, from Deadline.com, and the title is Lord of the Rings Trilogy 25th Anniversary Event Rings Up $11 million in worldwide box office. I like the little pun in the title there. That was good.
Very good.
So it reads, while Lord of the Rings fans are waiting for the next installment in the franchise, the Andy Serkis directed The Hunt for Gollum in December 2027, they return to cinemas this weekend to see Peter Jackson's 25th anniversary of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring from 2001, as well as its 2 sequels, The Two Towers from 2002 and The Return of the King from 2003. Combined, the entire reissue of the New Line trilogy via Fathom Entertainment did $9 million at the domestic box office, with another $1.5 million from offshore markets, for a combined total of the global weekend of $10.5 million. So it says, broke down, Fellowship of the Ring did $3.85 million over 4 days, while Two Towers did $2.64 million, and Return of the King made $2.5 million since Sunday. Originally only booked for 2 weekends, from January 16th to January 18th, and January 23rd to 25th. Each title was to play on a particular day. For example, The Fellowship of the Ring on Friday, The Two Towers on Saturday, and The Return of the King on Sunday. But by fan demand, movie chains added additional days, locations, and marathons. And I think I was lucky enough to avail of one of those additional days.
Yeah.
In honor of the 25th anniversary of the theatrical release, Jackson recorded never-before-seen intros for each title in the trilogy. AMC, Regal, and select circuits were selling limited popcorn-branded popcorn buckets to celebrate live-action screen takes of the J.R.R. Tolkien novels. Fathom and Warner Brothers New Line previously teamed up in 2024 on a theatrical re-release of the trilogy and grossed $8.2 million at the box office over 3 weekends. The multi-Oscar winning team behind the blockbuster The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies, Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens, is reuniting to produce 2 new films from Tolkien's Middle-earth for Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema, and Zane Weiner is also producing. The lifetime for The Lord of the Rings and Hobbit live-action movies through 6 titles counts north of $5.9 billion at the global box office. That is an astounding number. Walsh and Boyens are writing the screenplay for Hunt for Gollum along with Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papagiorgio. Ian McKellen announced that he was coming back as Gandalf, Andy Serkis as Gollum, and Elijah Wood as Frodo. And the blurb for The Hunt for Gollum is that the pick explores Aragorn's adventures as a ranger, specifically his quest to capture Gollum between the Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring, tracking him to keep the ring's location from Sauron. And cameras are expected to roll in May. The Hunt for Gollum opens on December the 17th, 2027. So just a little bit of information there at the end about the start date for rolling and also the release date. It's amazing we've got a release date already. So that's super exciting. 2 years down the line.
They did release the release date ages ago, and it was the 17th of December 2026, and then just a couple of months later they're like, release dates don't really mean anything, do they? Like, they just pumped another year onto it. So
that's true.
But like, the good thing is just on the Hunt for Gollum is there are plenty of reports of Andy Serkis at least going to and from New Zealand over the last couple of months. So we know the Lord of the Rings pre-production was insane. It was like over a year where they did things where they created Hobbiton, they planted trees, they planted plants, they planted shrubbery and flowers, and
they grew grass and everything.
Yeah, they got all that kind of stuff ready. So look, I don't know what Andy Serkis is doing, but he's obviously doing a lot in terms of pre-production when we're not rolling until May. But yeah, it's interesting to get that little blurb as well, how it does mention Aragorn as a ranger and how we'll probably be getting some Dunedain in The Hunt for Gollum, I assume, I hope.
Yeah. Well, that is the dream and the hope. So we will see. But so pretty impressive numbers there. And again, I'm always happy when I see that it's doing well from the box office perspective, because it just kind of, it means that the higher ups would be like, oh, this is maybe another reason to put it on again and make more money again. And like, obviously, if it just didn't make any money, they'd be like, oh, okay, well, that was a failed experiment. But I don't care about them making money. I just care about them having a reason to put it on more often in cinemas, and especially the extended editions. That was kind of a nice little sprinkle on top this time. So
Yeah.
it really was remarkable seeing these films back in where they belong on those big screens. And when I saw it, there was collective laughs and gasps and applause and lots of crying. So much crying as well.
And lots of really bad nerd sweat as well, where I was as well. But I was part of the nerd sweat as well.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Oh, we all were. We all were. I think that was one of the most joyous parts of it all, just being surrounded by our fellow people. But I was going to ask you, what was your... So just for our listeners as well, Dave and I saw these separately as well. We weren't in the same cinema. So we haven't actually sat down and spoken about our experiences since. So I wanted to kind of get the vibe, Dave. What was the vibe in the cinema? Was there any people cosplaying, or were there any big audience reactions? Like in that Marvel scene where they said, what was the line that
on your left
Captain America said?
No?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember.
Where
I just remember seeing the reaction videos where they all just, like, the cinemas are going insane and people are like standing up and crying and cheering and applauding.
Oh yeah,
anyway,
when Captain America catches Mjolnir, wasn't that the
that was the main scene? That was one of them as well. Yeah.
Also,
yeah,
Iron Man saying
that was probably the big
Iron
applause
Man.
scene.
Yeah.
I think
I think Falcon as well saying on your left, and then all of the portals opening up. That was a huge moment, and we're a little bit more reserved over in Europe. But I know you guys over in America, you go wild. It's like a I don't know, it's like a circus going to the cinema. Yeah, over here you get shushed, but yeah, no, it was still pretty good. Obviously, going to legacy movies where the majority of people have already seen these, they already have the fandom. There were quite a few. I'm trying to think, were there lots of cosplaying? There was plenty of people wearing Christmas sweaters with, different Lord of the Rings sayings and quotes on them. There was plenty of Yeah, there was plenty of little chains with the one rings on them. There was, I think I saw elf ears. Very cool. And lots of the typicals as well, like I said, sweaty, greasy people just having a great time. It was good. It was a good time.
It was an amazing time, yeah. And again, just for context as well, Dave and I both went to see the third installment of the Lord of the Rings. So we went to see The Return of the King. This was, I don't know about you, Dave, maybe it was the same reason. I kind of was a bit late to the party and I didn't realize they were on until when I actually was like, oh my God, they're on in my area. I didn't even know. And I looked it up and they were all sold out. The first two films were sold out. And there was a few showings of the third one that were all sold out. And I got like the very last showing of the third film. There was a few seats left. So I just like snuck in there at the last minute by the skin of my teeth, as they say. But was that a similar experience for you, or why did you end up going to the Return of the King?
Yeah, well, first of all, I've been really much involved in the build up to it online, and I had been constantly, checking to see, not actually checking the cinemas or the theaters, which I should have done, but checking to see reports or, even tweeting every now and again, asking people, does anyone know if this is coming to Europe? Is it coming to Ireland? Is it coming to the UK? Like, what's going on? And it was just kind of dead silence. And I know yourself and myself had prepared anyways. We'd watched Fellowship and Two Towers leading up to that weekend. Yeah. So we had seen those two movies, and I was fully prepared to watch Return of the King here by myself. And it was actually my girlfriend that said, hey, look, it's in the cinema. And I was like, no, but like, I want to see the extended edition one. She was like, yeah, extended edition. I was like, hold on, what? It's been in Ireland this whole time. Now it's not we don't have AMC cinemas over here in Ireland, so we didn't have all the bells and whistles like the popcorn buckets and the Coke cans that had 25th anniversary, so we couldn't get that merch. We'll probably get into it in this episode, but Peter Jackson spoke like director to audience at the beginning of every movie, which was nice, but we didn't have that in Ireland either because of we were going to, I think you went to Omniplex and I went to Cineworld, and they just weren't showing them here in Ireland. But yeah, it was still a blast.
Yeah, it was still a blast, of course. And I remember you telling me about something that Peter Jackson mentioned in the third one, where he was kind of giving his little intro and then just said something like, actually, this is a really long movie, so I'm just going to let you guys get on with it and just, here's the movie. So he kind of cut himself a bit short, which is fair enough. But do you want to, so do you want to just expand on that a little bit and tell people about those things? So what did Peter Jackson do for these movies?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I think it's kind of funny. In the beginning of every movie, he showed up with probably, I don't know, an iPhone that was recording him sitting in front of what looked like a cat tower behind him. And he was just there wearing like a Hawaiian shirt, and he wore a different Hawaiian shirt in each video.
He does what he wants, Dave.
I know he does what he wants, but it's just hilarious. Like, and you know, no editing, no nothing. Like a few people,
he's kind of like Jack Black, in just that his style is just like, look, I don't care what you think of me. I'm going to wear what's comfortable, and you just deal with it.
It's true, but
you know, he's built up the reputation to be able to like carry that off.
That is true, and you know, he is a multi-billionaire probably at this point. Well, he's definitely a billionaire. But it was funny as well because he was wearing a shirt underneath the Hawaiian shirts that had some quote, and people were trying to deduct what does this mean. But look, he just rambled for 8 to 15 minutes in each video, and you know what, I loved every second of it. But putting it up on social media, I saw a lot of people didn't love it. Some people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like if you look at our page, even at Mellon_heads, a lot of people said, "Oh, too rambly, like, you know, too long, whatever." I disagreed. I didn't respond to any of those people. I liked every second of it. Also, I found out on Reddit, like I said, a lot of people had gone to see these films for the very first time. And for anyone that hasn't seen Peter Jackson talking before the movies, he actually gave away some major plot points. In fact, huge spoilers for every single one. So for the Return of the King, he started talking about his experience of how Sir Christopher Lee was very disappointed that the death of Saruman wasn't included in the theatrical cut. So he spoils the beginning immediately, and then he goes on to talk about
it's the beginning.
It's the beginning, but then he goes on to talk about how the final. The end of the movie is, you know, they're going to the Grey Havens, and Frodo's going to the Grey Havens, and he talks about how that was shot on like day 2 or something, or it was one of Ian McKellen's first shootings.
That's right, it was one of his first scenes.
Yeah. So there were a couple of I had seen Reddit posts where people were not happy at the positioning, I suppose, of where Peter Jackson's video came. Like, it could have come up saying no spoilers, or it could have come up at the end. I didn't think about that because I like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I just assumed everyone that was going has. It's
amazing, really, that like I'm sure Peter Jackson is thinking, okay, look, we're going to be recording this little short snippet to introduce the 25th anniversary of these films. Can you just say something about them? He's not thinking, okay, this is going to be people are going to be going to cinema seats for the first time. You know, this is going to be absolute nerds who have already seen them, you know, into the 1,000 times, you know. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure that was the last thing on his mind, that okay, this is going to be someone's first introduction into this world. So that's kind of mad. But yes, I can understand it from all perspectives. But yeah, for me, I'd just be like, what are you doing? What have you been doing with your life?
That's one way you can put it. Like, what have you been doing? But yeah, generally that's what most of the intros to the movies were. He was giving a little bit of tidbits. You know, he talked about when Viggo got a surfing accident and half his face was black and blue, so they had to record one side of his face in all of the Mines of Moria scenes. One thing that he mentioned as well that I
was going to say, I love how when he's talking about that part where Viggo got like smacked in the face with a surfboard, he was like, because Viggo had been out with the hobbits surfing, and this guy, like, just how and like him hobbits. And like other people that like Gandalf, well, I mean, Ian McKellen does it as well. Like, he always just, when he's in interviews, he's like, oh, I think it was when I was with the hobbits, and like, but not like in the movie. Like, he's talking about like, oh, last year I was having dinner with the hobbits. And like, oh, it's so cool that they just all refer to them as the hobbits.
Yeah, they just act like it as well. They're like their characters. So there was a lot of that, and a lot of stuff that, you know, a lot of us diehard fans would know all of the behind the scenes and every little fact and tidbit. So there wasn't a huge amount of new information for the likes of yourself and myself. But one thing he did talk about that I thought was quite interesting is the fact that we all know that he made his money, he made his millions in Lord of the Rings. He ended up coming back to The Hobbit, and he also did King Kong and a couple of other things. But he's been out of the game for quite a long time, and I suppose the theory that a lot of people have thought about is like he's not that interested in it anymore. And I suppose he didn't necessarily address that rumor. He probably hasn't heard anyone saying that, but he did mention how his DP, his director of photography, Andrew Lesney, he passed away when he was very young with cancer in his 50s, I believe. And, you know, that was Peter Jackson's number one guy. You know, he met him during the filming of The Lord of the Rings, and they butted heads quite a bit, but he said we literally became like brothers after that. And after he passed away, Peter Jackson said that he feels like he couldn't do another movie because he would have to, you know, meet a new DP, and that's a whole thing, and that's a whole lot of trust, and that's probably why he's gone in to do things like the Beatles documentary, the World War I documentary. But he did say at the very end of that little story that he will return one day, kind of like a Marvel movie.
Will return.
But yeah, he did say like
mad,
I will be back. Yeah, which is great.
I'll be back. That's it's definitely going to be hard. I suppose you probably build up this such like an emotional connection with these people that you're working with, and you're in the trenches with these people, and then you kind of come through that, and it builds these like strong bonds. And that's I suppose we can see the same for all the cast and crew, that they're still so close after all these years. But moving on anyway to talk more about the film that we saw. And again, remember, Dave and I, we saw The Return of the King. Before we get into it, I'm just going to run through some numbers here of how successful this film is. We all know that it's the joint most successful film of all time in terms of Oscars. But I was just looking into like random stuff about it the other day, and I was just like trying to remind myself of the actual Oscars that it won. So it won Best Picture. So of course, it won Best Director for Peter Jackson. It won Best Adapted Screenplay. It won Best Art Direction, Costume Design, Film Editing, and Makeup. But then I was also glad to see that it had 2 awards for music. It had the Best Original Score for Howard Shore, and it had the Best Original Song in Into the West, which I just had played at my wedding recently. And it also had Best Sound Mixing and Best Visual Effects. So 25 years after that song came out, I was like, I still need to have that in these important moments of my life. So
absolutely.
Those are the awards that this has won. And again, just an absolute clean sweep. 11 Oscars nominated for and 11 Oscars won. So just incredible. It's so amazing as well. It's so fantastic and so reassuring it was in that time, at least, that this fantasy genre was able to go in and get the like credit that it deserved on the biggest stage, because very often it's so easy for these kind of films to be so momentous and so amazing and get such like amazing, for people just to talk about them in such glowing terms, but then they'll go to the Oscars and just be like, oh yeah, obviously we can't give you guys that award because we need to give it to a silent black and white film or whatever. You're kind of going, okay, great. It's probably the same for comedy films as well, that you could have this amazing comedy film and it's never going to really win an Oscar, is it?
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel like if The Lord of the Rings came out in this day and age, which was another thing Peter Jackson said, that these movies could not be made today with everything that went in behind the scenes. But if they were to come out today, I think the Academy Awards have they've always been kind of in the toilet, but like they're more so in the toilet now that all the different categories
they've lost touch now. Yeah,
they've lost touch. Like one major Academy Award or Oscar that didn't exist back then is motion capture, and basically Andy Serkis spearheaded the creation of modern motion capture. So like sorry, I don't mean Andy Serkis, but the team at Weta Digital and Weta Effects and all that, but like everyone collectively together. So that's one thing. The movies, it's very rare that there's been a clean sweep, and this is I think it's the highest clean sweep. I know obviously Ben-Hur and Titanic have 11 Oscars.
Yeah, but I don't think they had clean sweeps. I don't think they won each of their nominations. I could be wrong on that, but I think you're right. I think this is the highest clean sweep.
I'd looked into it before a while ago, and there was movies now that I haven't heard of. There was a movie from the 50s or something that had a clean sweep of 5. There's been a good few 3s, and I think that's that's probably about it.
Yeah.
But also
Puts it all into perspective, really.
But yeah, exactly. And coming up to awards season, which is right around the corner. I'm not sure, Johnny, if you heard this, but people are freaking out because there is a movie that has been nominated for 16 Academy Awards. Did you hear about it?
What?
Yeah.
Is it? No, I don't know. What is it?
Could you guess what movie it is from the year? Is there any movie that stands out?
Well, I know that Hamnet is a film that I've heard of. That I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard that that's won lots of awards recently. But I think that's just for kind of like best performance or
Paul Mescal
best actor,
won, yeah.
best actress. Paul Mescal's in that with the other Irish actress, and she's the one that's been winning awards in the last.
Jessie Buckley, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Jessie Buckley. Yeah, she's won in whatever there's always like a few award ceremonies leading up to the Oscars that like basically are good like pointers for who's going to win. She's won that the last few times. That's the only one that's really on my radar. I know that I don't know, did Avatar do well? I've no idea.
Yeah, I actually don't even think Avatar makes the cut on time just because of its late release. I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay.
But no, like a movie that I hadn't seen. I know there was a good bit of buzz about it, but it's actually the movie Sinners. Tron Legacy. The movie Sinners. I'm not sure.
Sinners?
Yeah, Ryan
I haven't
Coogler.
seen that. Is it like a remake of the original Sinners from the 90s?
I didn't know there was an original Sinners from the 90s. I doubt it because I think I'd say I haven't looked at the nominations, but I'm assuming it's original screenplay because Ryan Coogler is the director, the same guy that's done like Black Panther, and that's all I know actually, Black Panther. But yeah, it's kind of about I don't really know, 1950s vampires or something. I think it's kind of like a horror movie. I
just went to the completely different directions I thought you were going to go in.
No, I've heard good things, but I didn't hear 16 Academy Award nomination good things, and I think people are freaking out in the world. But
people can freak out, and people freak out all the time online about the stupidest things. So I think they can all freak out collectively, and then just all calm down and take a good deep breath.
If there's anything I can say to calm the nerves, I think it's the fact that there's been very few clean sweeps, and there's been no clean sweeps higher than Lord of the Rings, which is 9. So, 11.
No, of course not. 11, yeah.
11, yeah.
So, why are people
order.
freaking out? Are you saying people are freaking out because they're fans of this film, or is it like you looking at the Lord of the Rings?
Oh, I'm talking about
people are going.
I'm talking about my Lord of the Rings boys that are all online saying, "How is this happening?" You know, it's absolutely crazy.
Well, it hasn't happened yet. Nothing's happened yet. But it's kind of like I remember that's how I felt when like was it One Direction or one of those boy bands kind of took over
like the Beatles or something.
They had more UK number ones than the Beatles or something like that. And I was like, it has all been in vain.
The fellowship has failed.
This doesn't count anymore.
We're at a point now where we can look back, and it's been a long enough time that clearly One Direction are the better band.
I agree with you, and they all don't have better solo careers as well. Absolutely. But anyway, we digress. So Dave, we'll move on, and we'll move back to where we were talking about our own experiences now in going to see these films and our, as I called them earlier, our re-returns to the re-releases. So what hit you the hardest this time, Dave? What were the highs and the highs and the highers, because there were no lows? What things really stood out to you seeing it on the big screen and hearing it on the big screen?
Yeah, I suppose a lot of people would be expecting answers from people that are like, this scene really hit me more. I think I was prepared for the scenes that were going to hit me the hardest, and definitely, obviously, one of my favorite scenes of the whole trilogy, the lighting of the beacons is just absolutely outstanding. Obviously, I suppose a little shout out to the scene of when Faramir is basically going on his suicide mission. To see that on the big screen was beautiful. Like, we know it's a beautiful scene with Billy Boyd singing in the background, but I suppose just the wide scope of it, getting to see all the orcs much closer up, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Even just the end credits, staying for that, it was beautiful. But yeah, I suppose one of my small lows was the fact that the cinema wasn't boomingly loud for some reason, and I know that I seem
Really?
to suffer on my own there, yeah, because I've talked to a lot of
I
people.
hate
and
that. Like, yeah, no, I've been to films before where I want the volume like pumping. I want to like
Yeah.
get really into it. You know, I want to feel the vibration of the noise just in my chest and hear the sound and the surround sound. I want it like up to 11. So yeah, I'm sorry for you.
No, it's grand. Like one thing I will say as well is on the big screen, I think you and I are very aware of some of the CGI or the the shots that probably haven't
Didn't quite
aged
hold
as
up.
well. Yeah, but like that's very few and far between. But like I was kind of looking for those, and they seemed a lot more obvious to me on the big
I do
screen.
the opposite. I try to kind of blind myself to those things as well. Like when the scene when Frodo finally runs into the doorway into the mountain, into Mount Doom, where he's running in there. It's like it's really, really janky, and it like his feet aren't really on the floor and stuff. But and I remember like the first few times I kind of noticed that, I was like, oh, this is kind of whatever. But now whenever that happens, I'm like
You're
looking
away.
around at different things. I'm like, what's going on?
Down at the
What's
popcorn.
going on over there? Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm looking at the screen, but I'm not. Like, I don't let my eyes be drawn to Frodo's footsteps in that moment, if you know what I mean. I'm looking at the details of like
your gaze has moved off.
That exactly, yeah. So I'm looking at like the archway going into Mount Doom, or like little other details. I'm just trying to find other details that are.
That's
cool,
fair.
Yeah,
I respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something else has drawn your gaze, which is totally fine.
Something else has drawn my gaze.
Yeah. What about you?
Yes.
What was your like standout thing?
You scanned over it very quickly there. I want to go back to like how good was the lighting of the beacon scene? Like, I mean, how good is that scene? Like, it's just, it exists in the present tense. It's always around us. You know, it's just so amazing. But like, and again, I agree with what you said there. It was really, really well said that I was ready for the big moments that were going to impact me, and they lived up to what, I mean, it's so incredible. I've seen this film countless times, and I'm still just, like, the hairs stand up on the back of my neck and on my arms, and I'm just like, I just love it every second of it. Like, I remember like a friend of mine that I was at the cinema with like just all the big scenes that were coming up. We were like looking at each other just before, we were like rubbing our hands together. We were like kind of like, you know, giving ourselves like giving each other little fist bumps and stuff like that, because we just like, oh, here we go. And then we just like, okay, just I'm gonna ignore you now for the next few minutes, just like lock into the scene. So
yeah,
like, it was amazing.
I think something actually that I will say didn't catch me off guard, but it was something I tried to let my emotions feel more of during this experience, because you and I have talked about it on this podcast before. What are the emotional beats, or what emotional beats hit the hardest? And I think for me and for you as well, most of it revolves around Theoden. I think Theoden has some of the biggest emotional punches in the Two Towers and Return of the King.
Definitely.
But like, yeah, I was expecting those. Obviously, goosebumps. You know, hair was standing on our arms when the speech at the Battle of the Pelennor was happening. But something that doesn't usually get me, which seems to get every single other Lord of the Rings fan, is the "You Bow to No One" scene. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the music is lovely because it's the Shire theme that comes in there, or the but obviously more,
it's the Shire theme. It's like it's nearly like culmination of that theme as well.
Exactly.
He's really going for it, and that scene.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I think
so what are you saying? So you're saying it did affect you this time?
I think I was, again, going in prepared and being like, I want to feel what people feel, you know, man. And I think it
what are
got
these feelings people have.
I think it hit me emotionally a lot more than it had done in the past.
Yeah.
I think maybe at that point I'm already cried out and I have nothing left to give. But yeah, that was good.
I was gonna bring this in as a bit of a hot take, because everyone online and everyone I know talking about that film and talking about tearing up, it's like, and again, I think I watched someone's review of this film recently. I think it might have been a review of the extended, going to see the extended ones. And I was looking through all the YouTube comments, and every comment was like, "Oh, You Bow to No One really got me.
Yeah.
I got choked up. I was in absolute tears. There was a man beside me bawling his eyes out at the You Bow to No One. I never cry at the You Bow to No One, and I'm like,
a big man.
Is there something wrong with me? Am I like dead? No. I cried like loads. I cried like literally 30 seconds before that scene when Aragorn is like reintroduced to Arwen, where he's like they're kind of they're meeting again, and that moment I was proper welling up at that scene. And I remember thinking, oh, if I'm this emotional for this scene, I'm surely this is the time that it's going to get me the You Bow to No One. And then it came, and I was like, I just think it's so lovely. I just love the scene. I think it's
lovely.
Great. It's so beautiful. I think it's lovely. It doesn't get me in the same emotion. I don't know. It doesn't hit me in that same emotional place as for example, like I just said, Aragorn just sees his long lost love, who he thinks has sailed away, and he's never going to see her again. And he's also rejected another love interest in Éowyn, even though he thinks, look, I know that the likelihood of me being with Arwen is pretty much zero now. And then she's there at his coronation. He's the king. Everything that he wanted to happen has come true, and then suddenly it's like this. I don't know. I think gets me a lot more.
But I think it's also the music as well. Like the music just before their kiss is quite like, it's high pitched singing and it's sad, and then it's kind of silence and he kisses her, and then it's kind of triumphant, but it's really nice, and it is. I think it's more emotional. It's more emotional.
The sound design around that scene is more designed in order to give you that kind of an emotional beat, whereas the moment of the You Bow to No One is just,
it's more triumphant.
Says You Bow to No One, and then it swells up into the beautiful Shire theme, which we all just when I hear that all the time, because I just like put it on in my house,
and it makes me feel like I'm daily home. It doesn't make me feel like I cry.
I just love it.
I think
exactly.
I think
you
for
get
me,
Dave.
I get you, and I want to hear
what we should start a podcast, man.
We should start a podcast. This is exactly how this podcast started, but we should totally start a podcast. But I'm interested to hear what the listeners have to say about this as well, because like, what is it? But what I do think scientifically, we're breaking down why it's not super emotional for us, and I think it's the music, and it's too familiar. It's happy. It's we're back home again, but it's not like, I think when you're looking at things like the last March of the Ents, like that kind of music is just so sad, and it's triumphant, but it's like, this may be our doom, but we're still going to war, and that theme comes up in many different places, not just for the Ents, but it does come up in many other places in Lord of the Rings, and I do find it very emotional. And then anything Theoden does is just, it's triumphant, it's heroic, but like the Rohirrim theme is quite sad as well, I think, and just everything it represents.
I think that was another. I'm struggling here. I'm just in my own little world here, thinking of the other scenes that really got me, and that I was.
Do you know what gets me?
I had
when
tears
the King
in my
of the
eyes.
Dead comes out and he goes, "We fight." No, only messing. Sorry, but I would like to know if anyone has something.
And
like,
then the Shire music kicks in.
Do, 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 do. I would like to know if anyone has
the scene where Theoden's death. Theoden's death does get me usually, and it got me hard this time. Like, because I feel like also for some reason in this viewing of this film that I've seen, as I said, hundreds of times, I was really invested in Éowyn's story. I don't know why. I was just like more than I've ever been before. I was loving. I just thought Miranda Otto's performance is it's so moving and it's so striking. And then when it kind of culminates in that, she's just speaking to her uncle, who is basically being like her father, and she says, "I'm going to save you," and he says, "You already did."
Yeah.
And I was like a big babby in that moment.
Yeah, and then he gets to see her smile again. You're right, and you know what? Like, I think obviously we're always invested in Theoden's in his story, his life, his arc. But I felt like on my rewatch of the Two Towers and then seeing this in the cinema, I was more invested in his story of how he feels like such a failure until his
that
last
was another
battle,
thing. That
you know?
That's it. That's in this moment as well, where he says, "I go to my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall not now feel ashamed."
Exactly.
So that's like, there's the emotional things on both sides of it, and so normally I'm kind of just like focusing maybe more on Théoden's and on that part as well. But as I said, you get all that, and then you also get the fact that he's telling Éowyn that like you've saved me, and you're the one that's given me this kind of this feeling that I can now die with honor, and just that he's so proud of her. I don't know, just the whole thing coming together was just beautiful. And I mean, it always is. It's just it's an absolute masterpiece.
It's such a perfect movie.
But
God almighty.
I know, yeah. But there was I'm trying to think of other things I was noticing more. Do you know what I noticed loads more in this one? Again, I think it might have been just because we watched that Corridor Crew breakdown on like forced perspective and all that kind of stuff about a week ago. Mm-hmm. If you guys haven't seen that, go check out Corridor Crew. About a few weeks ago now, they put out a video just going back into like loads of the scenes of forced perspective. Forced perspective is when obviously you've got two people who are the same height and they stand at different distances from the camera to give the perspective that, you know, it's a hobbit speaking to a wizard or something like that. And it's all done in camera. There's no tricky editing going on or anything. It's just all from the way that you're looking at it. No special effects.
John,
it's all in camera.
Do you want to actually just explain a little bit more about that scene that was kind of a surprise to you and I, or at least the little trick in that scene with Frodo and Gandalf that we never really noticed?
Oh yes,
just as a quick little tidbit.
We know the forced perspective thing. Yeah. So, well, just to give the background to that as well. So, forced perspective, you'll see in the very first scene where Gandalf meets Frodo, for example, Frodo jumps into the cart and they hug, and then those are like different body doubles. There's like, you know, a tiny person representing Frodo at sometimes, and there's a giant person representing Gandalf sometimes. But then we get the shot of them. There's a fixed camera mounted, and it's like on the cart looking at them having a conversation, and he's talking about how, like, you know, us hobbits were very well respected before you came along and all that kind of stuff. And that scene, it looks like they're sitting right beside each other, and they are just two people of a completely different dimensions and heights. And the fact is just that Frodo is sitting further away from Gandalf, and Frodo is looking up to his left at like some other at a little marker, and Gandalf is looking down to his right at some other marker, and it looks like they're like, okay, just focus on those points, and it will look like you're looking at each other's eyes. And it's just very, very clever. But that scene is like the first one where we're kind of introduced to these forced perspective things. Now, the thing that's less impressive about that scene, and I say less impressive, you know, in kind of in inverted commas, because impressive. It's incredibly impressive. But I suppose the thing about that scene is that it's a fixed camera, and they're both in fixed points, which is just the way that's always been done over the last 100 years of cinema. Now, something that had never been done before or since in cinema. It
hasn't really been done since, yeah.
No. This has never been done, is having a forced perspective shot like that, but with a camera moving. Because you can imagine if people are standing in these locations where they make one person look larger and one person look shorter, and there's a fixed camera, you can imagine, okay, if you just like move the camera around a little bit to the side, you'll see like the illusion will be broken of actually what's going on.
You would physically see there the cart, like the differences between the two carts, where Gandalf is sitting on one ledge, Frodo's sitting on another. It looks like those two ledges are connected, but they're actually not. So that's just an example of where you would see the trick if the camera moved.
100%, exactly. And so, and obviously they kind of show how things that are closer to the camera will move more quickly than things that are further away. And they give the example of like a camera moving along a road, looking at a boat on out at sea, and looking at like some posts that are in front of that, and the posts are just flying past the camera, and the boat is moving incredibly slowly, because the further away you are, the slower you move, the closer you are, the faster you move. So just that's moving the camera breaks the illusion. So what happened in the Fellowship of the Ring movie was there were two different scenes in which they had a forced perspective shot with a moving camera. The first one was when Bilbo and Gandalf are in Bilbo's kitchen and they're having a cup of tea and all that kind of stuff. And then the second time we see it is when Gandalf is speaking to Frodo again in Hobbiton, and they are discussing stuff. And there's also even another added element of where they have steam from the kettle coming out on top of that screen again. And a lot of people say, oh, they did that. Pipe. Or maybe it's smoke from the pipe. I can't remember. There's smoke or steam or something there, and they kind of go, oh, they're doing that just to show you this is not an effect. This is done for real. Because if people kind of know about the sort of trickery, they might think, oh no, I think that what's been done here is like a blue screen or something. But so the way it's done is that they're sitting at different distances from the camera. They're sitting on two separate tables that are made to look like they're joined together. That's done by like putting specially positioned props and things on the tables, like little teapots and cups and candles and all that kind of stuff. They kind of hide the cracks of these tables not being connected. And then the camera and one of the tables are both mounted on these little tracks that will move from side to side. So the camera will slide from, let's say, right to left. But at the same time, let's say Gandalf is sitting on the table closer to the camera. He is also sliding along in the same at the same ratio as the camera is sliding along. So that
so it's all a connected rig.
It's crazy. It's all a connected rig basically, but like it's just the amount of thought and to create a 1 second shot of cinema. It's like the amount of effort that went into it is just unbelievable and
insane. For what 1 second, 2 second shot or something, or something so minor.
Yeah, it's about between 1 and 2 seconds of screen time each time, and then it's just that kind of the level of detail that goes into the small things like that kind of just influences the whole rest of the film, and it's kind of like, okay, well, this is how much time we're dedicating to just these small tiny little details, and that's seen throughout the entire filming of all three films. You can see it in the clothes design, where there's so many stories of Theoden saying, for example, like, there's loads of like little emblems of the King of Rohan stitched on the interior part of his undershirt, where he's like, literally nobody even sees my shirt, never mind the inside of it. Like, so it's just for him when he's putting on his clothes before the scene, he feels like he's putting on the clothes of the King of Rohan, and it's just going to get him. So
just for him,
there's just so much
and
of that.
for us, because we know that. But also in that scene, what was the one little piece that's kind of what anyone would know if they've watched the appendices, the like behind the scenes thing.
I got excited and got off track.
No, that's fine. You got off the rig.
Part.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's one thing that both myself and Johnny didn't know about, and I'm pretty sure that it wasn't included in the behind the scenes because we've watched those nearly as many times as the movies themselves. And I suppose that's the interaction between Frodo and Gandalf in that scene with the moving camera rig. They are both
with him and Bilbo.
With him and Bilbo, apologies. So one very, very clever thing that happens is Bilbo takes the takes the kettle off the stove and then goes to pour it into the teapot. And he comes over towards Gandalf, and Gandalf takes off the lid of the teapot and lets Bilbo pour it in. Now, obviously, Bilbo is further away, and you must say, how is this possible? Gandalf is basically lifting a teapot lid off just what would you call it? Like a rod?
A rod.
That's supporting it. And obviously the rod is being hidden by other little artifacts and items on the table, but it's just a floating teapot lid. And then, Bilbo is way over to the left of Gandalf, and Gandalf just lifts it up very carefully puts it back down again onto the rod.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's going into the teapot. It's just spectacular. It's so, and you already mentioned how, there's so much detail and stuff that goes into the movie in terms of like embroidering and costumes and stuff. But like they nailed the start, the opening, like I would say hour of the extended edition of the Fellowship. It was all about just selling the idea of these hobbits are a completely different size to adult men. And they did so many different things. They used short people, they used tall people, they used obviously the actors themselves, and then they used like robots that were huge as well with mechanical
people on stilts,
with mechanical hands. They obviously use forced perspective. They use CGI in some parts, like for example when Gandalf comes into Bilbo's home, they had they shot 2 different versions of Bag End. So like they just used every technique in the book, and it sells you, and that's why you can't.
You're exactly
find the
right.
trick.
That's what it's all about. It's selling this kind of the mirage to you. So I've never watched the Fellowship of the Ring, the opening half hour, 45 minutes, and thought, oh, there's a tall actor with another actor that's the same height, but he looks small. I'm just like, that's a hobbit and that's a wizard, and
that's why they age so well, because it's perfect and it's in camera and there's no special effects. But yeah,
That is, we're not here to talk about the Fellowship of the
Ring. We're rambling on.
When am I not talking about the Fellowship of the Ring? Is the real question. Amen. But what I wanted to say, I think one of the reasons I got onto this is that I noticed loads more of that in this film. It just maybe it was because of the effect of having watched that breakdown from the Corridor Crew recently, and there was a few different scenes that I could remember, and I went back and watched them on, like, I was like just clicking up those scenes from YouTube to rewatch them again and try and see where the trick was. There's one scene, for example, where Faramir meets Pippin for the first time, where he's just coming back in from Gandalf has just kind of rode out and saved them, and like they're like Mithrandir, and he goes out, saves all the guys that are coming back. They come in, and Faramir is chatting to Gandalf for the first time, and Gandalf kind of turns his horse around, and Pippin is sitting on the horse in front of him, and Faramir kind of gets stunned because he has just seen Frodo and Sam a couple of days before. So you're just looking, and again, I've never really considered this scene before, but it's just Gandalf on a horse with Pippin sitting in front of him. They're both in the screen together, and I'm like, what's going on here? I'm assuming that must be a blue screen moment there where they've just sort of superimposed Pippin into it. I know it's madness. I don't know. It looks so perfect, and I watched it back a couple of times. So here, this is homework for people. You got to go and look into these yourselves and see if you can see the trick, see what's going on, see how they did it, or else Google it and try and find the answer. Because I was Googling it as well, trying to see if there's some behind the scenes things, and I couldn't find anything. So there was that scene. There's other ones where I could see the trick. For example, when Pippin pledges himself to Denethor, he gets down on his knee in front of Denethor. Gandalf comes up behind him and hits him with his staff. So interaction between two people that are not the same size is always an amazing way to say. He hits him with his staff. He's like, get up. And it's like, again, I never really considered it, but I'm kind of going, anytime these people interact that are not the same height, it's amazing. And if it looks real, and as I said, I've seen this film 1,000 times, and this is the first time I've ever kind of questioned the fact that didn't really happen in the camera, where
because we're at a point now where we can, because we we're it's hard to emotionally take yourself out of it and look at it from a filming perspective. But I suppose when we've seen so many of the behind the scenes, you can do that. And I suppose another one that
it's just amazing, like Go on.
Yeah, it is amazing. And another one as well that people would be quite aware of as well. So just speaking of Pippin and Denethor and stuff is when Pippin is storming into Denethor's hall to say like he's not dead, and then Denethor grabs Pippin. A lot of people will know how this was done, but it's brilliant. Denethor, the actor John Noble, is basically grabbing a little person, and you can only see the back of his head. He's dressed as Pippin, he's got the wig on, and he just throws him. And then basically he's thrown towards the camera and you can't see him rolling, but he rolls and he hits the actor Billy Boyd, who then immediately raises up. And it just
pops his head up.
He pops his head up.
Because it's all in the one shot. Yeah.
It looks so perfect. Oh, it's so good.
It looks so perfect. Yeah, and there's another one as well when they're up on the balcony like the night before the battle begins, and they're like kind of just going, oh, this is a deep breath before the plunge. And
that
Gandalf
one I always feel
smoking,
like
smoking some ganj, and then
but he's just kneeling down, isn't he? No,
because he walks over to him, and then so Gandalf must be standing up on like a big platform or something. But again, Pippin walks over to him, hands him a cup of water. Gandalf takes it off him and puts his hand on Pippin's shoulder.
His hand looks huge.
His hand looks big, but it's the two same actors. Like, so I'm just kind of going, this. At this point, I'm like, it's all magic. I don't understand it anymore. These wizards are real, hobbits are real. But anyway, look, we need to be getting on because, one other thing, talking about that exact scene. And again, it's something that I think I've looked into it a few times, but when they're there on the balcony, and then what do they see from the balcony, Dave?
Mordor.
They do.
Right.
But what's impressive about Mordor in this scene? What happens?
They see that big Marvel superhero light going into the sky from Minas Morgul,
Yeah, someone turns on the bat signal and they see that. And I've read the books a few times as well, and I kind of always just forget about what that is. And then I'm always like watching the film and I'm like, I need to look that up again. And we've spoken about this so many times before that you watch the film and you think, I need to look into that. Yeah. But then the film goes on for like 4 hours and you're just so mesmerized and blown away by the end of it. It's like I've had a Men in Black erasure of the mind by the end of the film. I was like, wow, that was amazing.
Just an emotional mess.
So I did want to just kind of remind myself of what that was because I couldn't really remember what happens in the books. But I just looked up the quote from. It's actually in the Two Towers book when this happens, as opposed to in the third movie. But there's a little quote here, and it reads, "The great rumbling noise, louder than ever before, rolled in the ground and echoed in the mountains. Then, with searing suddenness, there came a great red flash. Far beyond the eastern mountains, it leapt into the sky and splashed the lowering clouds with crimson. In that valley of shadow and cold, deathly light, it seemed unbearably violent and fierce. And Minas Morgul answered. There was a flare of livid lightning's forks of blue flame, springing up from the tower and from the encircling hills into the sullen clouds. Across the narrow valley, now almost on a level with his eyes, the walls of the evil city stood, and its cavernous gate, shaped like an open mouth with gleaming teeth, was gaping wide. And out of the gate an army came." So that's the representation from the book that they went with this giant big green column of light that shoots up into the sky. It's a little bit different, I suppose, but that's, I suppose, where they are getting the kind of the reference.
Surprised they changed the color there.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the red initial one that comes from Mordor, and then it's the response. So what's happening here? It's basically like a call and response of like, "Are you guys ready? Yeah, we're ready. Okay, let's go." So Mordor kind of comes out and like has this great red flash in the sky, and that like, you know, reverberates around through the clouds and stuff. And then Minas Morgul responds with some blue lightning forks springing up from the tower. So they went for a kind of a greeny, turquoisey color, I suppose, instead of the blue. But again, I suppose the whole look of the city was this kind of weird green, ghostly light.
Yeah. Pale light.
I think it was
illuminating nothing.
a light which illuminates nothing. Yeah. What is it? Is it a ghost light they call it?
I think it's just called a pale light say it's in the book. Is it a pale light? A light that illuminates
There's another
nothing.
Description, but then the light that illuminates
There
nothing. That's it's always one of my favorite Tolkien quotes.
Stunning. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was just something I was like kind of wanted to remind myself of where the inspiration for that scene came as well. And
cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
I suppose right at the Rohirrim. I mean, is there anything more that we need to say about that people don't already know as well? That was another one of those scenes that you mentioned, kind of just, I was ready for it. Good. And it came and it just lived up to expectation and it's never failed. I'm waiting for the time I watch this film and I don't just get so excited and so like always hair stand on end when I'm listening to Theoden's speech, and then they're, you know, when spears will be broken and shattered and all that kind of stuff. When I see the shields and the spears actually being shattered in real life in front of me, like it's just incredible. It's just, that's cinema 101. Like that is incredible stuff. That's what you go to the cinema to see. And yeah, that was one of the standout scenes again.
It absolutely is. It's so good. And like something I love about the Battle of Minas Tirith, or the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, is just, you know, we're very used to this with Helm's Deep, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, and like, you know, the good guys are winning, the good guys are losing, the good guys are winning, the good guys are losing. And I just love that when you've got the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and I always feel like the Ride of the Rohirrim. I always feel like yes, this is it now. This is it finishing off. And then I always just forget about the Haradrim, and then I'm like, oh God, like here we go.
Yeah, I know, I thought we were doing well there for a minute, guys. Oh no.
Yeah, and like the way they reform the line, and it's just absolute magic.
Meet them head on. Yeah. It's incredible.
And also
so good.
Another scene, I think, I'm not really sure if you and I have talked about it on the pod before, but it's something that I only discovered like 2 years ago, or maybe you did as well. But there's a scene where Éomer's charging at an orc and he's just looking so crazy. But I always used to think it was just like a weird movie mistake or something, where there's a floating spear or a spear belonging to somebody else and he just kind of grabs it in the air and then like charges. But I don't know, have you seen this? But actually, if you watch his hand, he's running and he's holding the spear down like this, and it's very hard to see him do it, but he actually throws it up in the air.
He's running or he's on horseback?
Sorry. The horse is running, And he throws the spear up in the
right.
air where it doesn't move, and he catches it like this. But it looks like he just kind of grabbed it off the screen. But I saw behind the scenes
I've never not seen it that way. I've always
really?
seen him just kind of toss it up and catch it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've never. I only found that out when I saw Carl Urban himself talking about how he practiced that for like many years. I've never seen it because I'm always just so focused on his face, and his face is like and then I could see in my peripheral.
Dad!
I see in my peripheral like a spear kind of just there, and it's just floating,
Yeah.
and he just grabs it. I'm like, where did he get that from? And I always
Carl
just
Urban
thought,
has
like,
a pretty face, Dave. Look, I nobody's going to argue with you there. So I mean, if you're just like so engrossed with his face and his cheekbones, well, look, that's just fine.
not pretty enough to superimpose it at the Battle of Helm's Deep at the very end. If you know, you know, guys. If you know, you know.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about. Oh, there's so many more things I want to talk about, but
No,
like,
that's
we're running
fine.
out of time. So
One thing I just wanted to say there as well, because we did bring it up. I would like to know if any of the listeners have kind of a what would you call it? Like a not so popular emotional scene. Like I mentioned there sarcastically about how, you know, the King of the Dead saying, "We fight," and like breaking down into tears. But is there actually a scene?
so a scene that people actually get, you know, choked up on, which is not one of the typical ones.
Yeah, exactly. I want to hear what it is.
I'm sure there's loads. Because I mean, I think there's just a few that will always
hit everyone.
take the prize, like the one that we're saying, like, which probably didn't affect either of us usually. Well, this time never affects me really, which is the You Bow to No One. As I said, I'm always just delighted to see that scene. I'm like, this is so nice, but it never gets me in that emotional way. So if I said that to the regular viewer and said, no, I'm way more choked up when something else happens, like.
But I'd like to know
the king has got his crown back. And that kind of just like small little,
that's beautiful, just
throwaway scene, and it's nothing, but it just kind of gets. I'm like, oh, you know, I don't know. There's little bits and pieces.
Speaking of the extended as well, we've got the Houses of Healing, and that's
a lovely scene.
That's a great.
Actually,
scene.
yeah, I think another thing that got me this time was hearing Éomer's scream when he sees Éowyn is on the hit that
horrific.
Scream would just like put the fear of God into you. Like you're like, it's just so harrowing.
It is harrowing. It's horrible to hear because it's a real grief-stricken scream. Like it's
guttural. You're like, I believe every second of that scream.
Yeah,
that's some amazing acting. Just like using your scream to convey all this, like, I don't know, just misery and I don't know. It's incredible.
Do you know? Maybe you know this, but maybe some of the listeners wouldn't have heard about this before. But Arwen, or the actress Liv Tyler, had a song recorded. She recorded a song before in the studio that they wanted to play at some part of the movie. I think in the Two Towers, and they just it was for the scene when she was seeing her son, the vision of her son, and she turned around and walked back. But they were originally going to have her song playing over that scene, and they just felt like it didn't fit very well. So they were like, right, we're not going to put it here. But do you know where they actually ended up putting it? It's the scene where we see the Aragorn's healing hands, and he's there healing Arwen.
Really? Is that Liv Tyler singing?
That's Liv Tyler singing in the background there. That's stunning.
Beautiful, that song.
It is, yeah, and it was recorded for a complete different purpose, but another amazing thing that Peter Jackson's able to do, and Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens as well. They were able to like work that into another part, and I suppose it does kind of represent a little bit of, you know, Aragorn's power and, you know, using elvish medicine and all that, and you hear the elvish song in the background. But yeah, just thought that'd be nice.
That's cool. I didn't know that before, Dave. That's deadly. I'm glad to know that. So that's lovely. Is there any other film of like a franchise that just stuck the landing as well as this film does? Like, it just absolutely brings it home. And like, you know, if you're just like, when you go in and you see the majesty of what is the Fellowship of the Ring, and then it backs it up with the Two Towers, you're kind of going, okay, we've set a lot of things up. There's a lot of balls in the air. How are we going to, like, you know, lay them all down? And it just knocks down every pin. It's unbelievable. So, I mean, yeah. But so after that, my question to you, Dave, is The Return of the King, is that your favorite film? or what's your favorite of the three?
It's so hard. Like, it really is. It's like choosing your children, and I hate children. But I think, I think,
Especially yours.
yeah, I hate I hate my kids, but I love these movies. It's so hard.
Listeners, he has no children. Just don't come at us.
Yeah, we don't. We don't have children, either of us, together. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of people's favorite movie is The Two Towers, and I think I can say with confidence that that's definitely not my favorite one. I love that movie. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's an 11 out of 10. But I suppose it just suffers from being the middle movie. It doesn't have a proper beginning. It doesn't have a climactic end. Sorry, it does have a climactic end, but it doesn't have a resolving ending.
It does have a beginning of the road here, I suppose. That's like one of the strongest things of that, introducing this whole world of Rohan. But I agree with you. I would say that out of the three, Rohan, it's easy for me to say. Well, look, to be honest, I'm just going to jump in and say it's easy for me to just tell you my order. My order is 1, 3, 2. But it's always really been. I think when the Return of the King first came out, maybe I was like, okay, this is the best of the three. And then over the years, I've gone back to Fellowship, and this was probably one of my favorite times rewatching The Return of the King. I just think, I remember going to the cinema, and it's like, when you're watching the films at home and you turn it on, and then, first of all, if you're watching the extended ones, you have to change the disc. So it's always like, okay, there's a pause, bathroom break, put on some popcorn, let's make a cup of tea, all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of going into this film, and I was saying, I wonder, is there going to be an intermission? Because I'd like to
as well,
go out, refill my drink, maybe go to the toilet, things like that. And it was like, oh no, there's no intermission. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be really, really long. I loved every second of it. I didn't miss a second. I was just like locked in. And I suppose it was even more when I saw that when there was no intermission, I was just like, okay, well now I'm just here. Just let me at it. So it was one of my favorite viewing experiences of the Return of the King movie in a long time. And it really made me start to think, do I need to rethink my order? But I'm going to say, no, I just still think The Fellowship is it's my absolute favorite of the three.
I think I would go 3, 1, 2. And I'm only saying that on, as people would say, recency bias. And that's because, not because I've seen The Return of the King most recently. It's because I feel like over the years I've seen The Fellowship far more times than I've seen the third one.
So have I.
But I don't know. Each movie has their own vibe, and you even brought it up there with Rohan. Rohan's probably one of my favorite factions in all of Middle Earth, and we're getting
and the music of Rohan.
The music as well,
and Theoden's probably up there of being my favorite character.
But I'm not putting that down, because we get a lot of that in Return of the King as well. But I just think it's just so climactic. It's also so cinematic, and it's definitely the most epic out of the three. I do think what you said about the first one, maybe the first one is the best movie, and it's definitely the best extended edition, the first movie, because all of the scenes, I also
agree with that,
that are extended in that, they 100% add to it. And then you've got the Two Towers and Return of the King, they've got a lot of extended scenes that either don't need to be there, but we love them, or they actually take away from the pacing. But I think the first movie extended edition is flawless, like absolutely flawless. No, I agree with that completely. Dave, I know that we're going on, so I want to be very quick about this, but I don't want to omit it from this podcast. There's something I wanted to talk about, and that's the importance of Frodo. Now I was going to say we could do a whole podcast on this. We have done a whole podcast on this, but I just wanted to mention about him again, that over the years, I suppose, I've spoken to a few people recently that have never seen the films, or sorry, they have seen the films, but maybe once, and they're not fans, and they were like, oh yeah, I saw that film. Oh yeah, that guy, he was often moany and blah, blah. And I think Frodo's been getting painted with this brush a lot recently. I think for me, over the years, I'm becoming more and more fond of Frodo the more I watch the films. And I don't like how he gets a bad rap. And after the film there, my wife and I, we were talking about maybe some of the reasons, maybe some of the filming decisions, and kind of going, and I remember speaking to my wife, and she was saying, I think if they had put in more scenes of just showing the absolute struggle and how he's holding this thing that's like a demonic thing around his neck. And I was like, I don't know how much more they could have done. Like they showed, I think they do that so well.
I know, I suppose I feel like sometimes we think like, oh, Frodo, why did he do that? Why did you make that decision? And you're kind of going, it's the ring. It's always the ring. And again, the whole argument of like, oh yeah, but he fails at the end. It's like Tolkien wrote about it in his letters. No one could have, like, everyone would have succumbed to the pressure of the ring in its most potent place, which is inside Mount Doom. There was no one that was going to be able to do it. And Frodo, his task was to get the ring into the position to be destroyed. And he succeeded in that task. And basically, there's just this kind of idea that he failed and that he's, again, just like very whiny and like again, I love that scene where Sam has the ring for like, whatever length of time he has. In the movie, it seemed like, I think in the book it's like a couple of days.
It's a couple of days,
in the movie,
where it becomes
in
Sam,
the movie,
the
it seems
gardener.
like it's a few hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, the most powerful gardener of all time. But in the movie, it looks like it's a few hours because basically they capture Frodo and the guy says this scum will be awake in a couple of hours and he's going to wish he was never born. And then we see Frodo basically waking up and that's when that scene happens. So it seems like it's only been a few hours. And when Sam is trying to give him back the ring, he's hesitant and there's all this, the sound is like swelling up and it's kind of like blocking off his ears and it sounds like he's kind of like underwater. He can't really hear Frodo. And this is after a couple of hours of holding it. Frodo snatches it off him and all that sound cuts out and he's immediately back to, oh yeah, everything's normal again. And it's just, I thought that was a really, really good representation of, but it's just, I think we kind of forget about this is what Frodo's living with all the time. His entire existence for the past year has just been this, and it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And he's holding this, as I said, like, the epitome of evil. And it's just this demonic artifact is just hanging around his neck. We can see it's like literally cutting into his skin on his neck because it's so heavy. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really important thing for people to remember, that this is the most important person. He's the only one that was going to be able to do this. He was the person that had the grace to spare Gollum, and which ultimately was the reason that the ring gets destroyed in the end. And there was one important thing that, again, speaking to my wife about this afterwards, she brought up this really, really cool little thing that I hadn't really thought about before. And it's how we all think about Sam. We all know Sam is just one of the best characters of all time ever written. And the scene where he kind of carries Frodo up the mountain and everyone's always talking about like, oh, Frodo's whatever crap and Sam is the best and Sam is the real hero and he saves Frodo. And at a point you say, yes, he does save Frodo at that point of the journey. But at the end of the film, when Frodo has to leave Middle-earth due to persistent torment and suffering, and we see Sam married with a family and flourishing, and this is where we see that in the long run, Frodo really saved Sam. And Frodo didn't allow Sam to share the burden with him, and that spared his future like spiritual and psychological pain that he would have suffered. And Sam was able to live an amazing life and to go on to do great things and become the mayor and have 13 children. But Frodo wasn't even able to stay in Middle-earth. So that's where you see the eventual, like the long-term sacrifice that Frodo, like, I mean, it was just a sacrifice from beginning to end. And that, I just wanted to bring that in. I just say that was a kind of cool thing that you see. That's Frodo's ultimate saving of Sam, I suppose.
Yeah, couldn't put it better myself. Yeah, I haven't really thought about that in that perspective that much, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like Sam gets to go on and have 13 healthy children, become the mayor of Hobbiton or mayor of the Shire.
Goes back and marries the love of his life. Yeah, just,
and he is
has a great time.
He is completely, I wouldn't say unaffected, but he's able to completely put that behind him, whereas Frodo physically and mentally just cannot, and he has to escape the Shire. And yeah, that is something that Frodo took on. I suppose it was his burden to bear, and even from the very beginning, and he didn't want Sam to come with him because out of respect and out of and that really does show Frodo's true character. And by the way, happy birthday, Elijah Wood. I'm not sure when this podcast is being released, if it's going to be on Wednesday or Thursday. It's his birthday on Wednesday. He turns 45. Imagine, he was 18 years old when they began filming the trilogy, and he is 45
what
now.
A performance. Yeah.
But absolutely incredible. And
what a man.
Yeah, him carrying the weight of this trilogy on his back at 18 years old.
At 18 years of age. Yeah, wow.
I think I'd heard a lot of people talk about that years and years ago, where Sam is the true hero. Everyone knows Sam is the true hero, but like they were hating on Frodo with the same brush as they were praising Sam. But I definitely had been over that a long time ago, and I think the more and more I watch the movies, I realize the acting, the performance that Frodo puts in is incredible. Yeah. Now him acting like a little bitch with the ring when Bilbo had it for many years and he was totally fine, that's not money messing. Like Frodo was going on a completely different mission, but
the ring was growing in power at that time. Also, Bilbo had it when he was hanging out in the Shire, miles away from where it was going to become more powerful. So every step that Frodo took closer to Mordor made that ring more powerful.
And it was the furthest he'd ever been from home.
Its time had now come, as Galadriel says in the prophecy as well, how the ring, it was kind of had decided, okay, I'm gonna start making moves, making shapes now to get back to the
circular shapes.
But it just shows 25 years later, Dave, how many people are still connected to Middle Earth, and how many people are still just, they want to grasp every chance they can get to go back to see these films. So I think we're going to leave it there at that. And I just wanted to talk for the last couple of minutes of this podcast about some other exciting news that we mentioned in our previous podcast, but just to talk again about our upcoming trip. Dave, would you like to take the lead on this?
Oh, I don't know about taking the lead, but like we're very, very close to leaving our own Shire. Well, no, sorry, I was going to say leaving our own Shire and heading to Middle Earth, but we're actually going to the real Shire, which is in New Zealand. We're going to be landing in Auckland in just a couple of days. And heading down to Hobbiton. We're going to be heading to Weta Workshops as well, doing the tours there. We're going to Rivendell. Then when we go to the South Island in New Zealand, we're going to be seeing many, many cool places as well, like lots of filming locations. Maybe not as famous as the ones like Hobbiton and the Weta Workshop area, but we should be getting some. I think it's fairly confirmed that we will be getting some little special nuggets down in New Zealand, so we might have a podcast or two coming back after that adventure. So we're both so excited. We already said it in the last podcast. We asked, what other kind of cool things is there to do there that we might not know of, and you guys have been great, really responsive, and we've actually added a few bits to our itinerary. And
yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
But
so
also
much.
Another thing that has helped us to add to our itinerary is, I'm going to bring it in here, that this special gift that I got from Dave as a belated Christmas present, because he'd ordered it online and it didn't arrive until very recently. So Dave very kindly got me this gift. I'm just going to hold it up here on screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it now. If not, I will tell you that it is a Lord of the Rings location guidebook by Ian Brody. And this is, I've been like flicking through it recently, and I'm using it to prepare for the upcoming trip as well. It's so cool. It's an incredible little booklet. A little booklet. It's about 180 pages long. So
and it's pretty large as well.
Yeah, but it's just like so like photograph dense, and it's just like there's every now and again you just flick over and there'll be like a double page spread of just mountains, Gandalf. And just to give you an idea, just to read the first few items in the index, it says you've got acknowledgements and forward and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got the introduction to New Zealand's mythology. You've got the location hunting process by Peter Jackson. You've got cameras in Middle Earth by Richard Taylor. You've got Middle Earth in New Zealand by Alan Lee. So all the sketches and stuff. You've got Finding the Locations by Barry M. Osborne. You've got A Day in the Life of an Extra. And then you've got 8 essential locations. And that's all in the first 30 pages of this 180-page book. So it's so cool. Again, just open up a random page and going to show all our viewers that's what it looks like. You've got mountains, and you've got all that kind of stuff. You've got interviews with cast. You've got all the stuff about the costume design and all the different miniatures, all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really good. I recommend it. And yeah, just we're using that to also, as Dave did mention, a couple of other locations that we are going to go and visit. We're going to see places like where they shot Rivendell. We're going to see Edoras. We're going to see
Fangorn.
there's a little place in Wellington where they shot loads of little scenes with, for example, where the ring wraiths are chasing the hobbits in the first film, and that time where the ring wraith gets off his horse by that tree and they're like crouching down. So we're going to go and see that. So yeah, loads of stuff, and we're hopefully going to get a few little recordings and stuff to share with you guys. And yeah, so look forward to that.
Yeah. Very much looking forward to it. Yeah, I can't believe it's finally happening, and I really want to share as much.
It's been in the works for a long time.
Yeah, it has. It really has. But yeah, very exciting. So there we go.
Yeah, well, that's just about all we have time for this week on the Council of Elrond. So thank you so much to everyone for listening. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun this week going back into the big screens to watch these incredible films. And just one more time, if you get the chance to see these films on the big screen ever again, you got to grab that opportunity with two hands. And so, yeah, I think we'll leave you with that. So from both of us, we bid you a very fond farewell.
Bye, Gavan and Mellons.